Morning, everybody. Glad to see everybody again. It is May 9th. It's Mother's Day, 2021. I'm out on the home build and building my wonderful wife a beautiful home. At least the start of it. Wanted to give you a little update on what's been going on, what's been happening on the home build. We've been doing a lot of trenching. So the ground is tore up. As you can see behind me, there's dirt moved all over the place, and that's kind of a typical thing for a construction site while during the build. I didn't want to show the details so much of just me digging away with a trencher. It's kind of a monotonous type of thing that you just do and get it done, and I just want to show you the results of it. So you can see this trench right here. It's our water line. It's a 1 inch. So the meter is going to be a 3/4 inch. It would have been just astronomically expensive to go to a 1 inch, and it wasn't necessary. But that volume in the 1 inch line helps maintain a good pressure to the house, since I got to go about close to 200 feet of this pipe. So this is a PEX pipe. Notice it's kind of a wavy all over the place. That's not a bad thing, actually. That's actually a good thing. Allows for a little more expansion, contraction. If it was a tight straight line from end to end with no little bends in it, when things shrink, things break, things fall apart, that sort of thing, pull apart. This next line is a sleeve. You can see it's yellow. It's our gas line. That's a 2-inch sleeve. The gas company, Northwest Natural, is going to come out eventually and shove their piping through that sleeve. So both of these could get backfilled, and probably I'll do that maybe next weekend, since I'll be working my day job, my apprentice instructor for the carpenters. And on the weekend, that's when I'll do this. I'll get an inspection for certain things, hopefully Friday. But here you can see where I got the gas line broke. That's since it's at 90 degrees. The Northwest Natural, they asked to have it 3 feet apart, and they'll make that connection, that turn, that bend of the gas line. And the PEX I'll have to push down before I backfill it and that sort of thing. But still got to work on this other end where it came through underneath the driveway. Got some hand digging to dig those trenches out. This water line, that's the main one I got to get hooked up. So this line won't reach all the way to the house, so I'm going to cut it right in here somewhere. I'm going to put a valve in the ground, as well as this junction over here where those two pipes sticking up. I'm going to put a box in the ground. I want it flush with the ground just so I can mow over it and that sort of thing. I don't want it sticking up above. And put a valve right there. So I just take the lid off the box, hook up a hose if I want, that sort of thing. Makes a great connection between the 100-foot lengths. We had our delivery of our septic, our ATT, and the pump chamber, all gonna go in that hopefully next week. And then the real pain in the rear was the electrical lines. Since we're installing 4-inch conduit, it was trenching everything. It was just a little bit too much of a bend, so I ended up having to get in here with the excavator. For one, able to dig it down lower, because I need to have a minimum of 30 inches to the top of the conduit. Okay, and then that trencher was just not working right. It wasn't getting the job done like the track hoe is. Man, that hindsight, it's always 20/20. I should have just used the track hoe at the very beginning. Even those lines over there, dig a 2-foot wide trench, put both conduits in it, the gas and the water. But I thought that trencher would have been less invasive, which over there is good. But here, with that 4-inch conduit, it's more rigid, stiff. it just doesn't make sense. So you're gonna see me how I install this 4-inch conduit, what I find to be the best way for me. And I've also seen lots of electricians over the years do it the same way. So and then I'm going to show you a section that I've already got installed. There's going to be a junction box right here eventually, but here's the 4-inch conduit. There's some sections down there that were caving in because they got a spring over there. So that was what do I do? It's all caving in. So Traco solved that problem, other than I still had to do quite a bit of shovel work to get it where I could use it. And you can see the water in it right now, and you can see things caving in, boom, boom, that sort of thing. So I wanted to make sure last night that I got that in. So if it does cave in like it did, and there were some worse sections yesterday I had to dig out by hand, but it's there. That is one thing that has to be inspected, mainly for depth, that it's glued together, that sort of thing. So Friday, hopefully I can get that dug and whatnot and inspected. One thing where I'll have to do some hand shoveling work is right where it ties into the junction box for power. So that green box right there, I'm gonna have a conduit sweeping around, going right up inside that. That's where power line for our transformer comes down, goes into that box, and then we're going to tie into that box as well. It's also where the neighbor is tied into. It doesn't even seem big enough, especially for the size of wire, but apparently it is. And that sort of thing. Here's some of the bends. So this 90-degree bend right here is supposed to be a 3-foot radius. That's what our power company in their design requires. And then it's a 2-inch riser. You can see, maybe not, but I'm gonna angle upwards, and then a 2-foot radius. So there's a 2-foot radius and a 3-foot radius. So the 2-foot radius will go up into that junction box, a 2-foot radius on the other end to another junction box, and that sort of thing. So this area was open enough that I felt I could just cut it off, because I got to get in there and dig. It'll just, you know, make a mess of the conduit. So that sort of thing. But this here, it's on the ground, and I'm not too concerned about it, the water or any of that sort of thing. So, but the other thing that we did yesterday, my daughter, lovely Miss Anna Rogers, she's 14, driving the Kubota tractor around, taking our good soil there, and actually I need to get this pile over there and put it right here on top of our drain field. This end of the drain field is like 2 feet lower than this end, and it needs to be more level. It needs to be probably within a foot of being level. That way, if the drain line's a little closer to the surface, it's a little lower on that end, but that drain line has to be perfectly level. So bringing in the best septic, they said that it's just totally fine. Bringing your native soil, the good soil, not the clay, that won't work. Bringing it in and help leveling this out. So that's what we started doing, and hopefully in the next week or two, or sooner, hopefully, they come out and start installing the septic, because I get a big hole over there that I want to get backfilled and covered in, so that there's not a big open hole for the builder when they come out. So that's kind of what's going on. I got some shovel work I need to do in this trench here, and then start installing this conduit. That's kind of my goal today. I want to try to quit a little early, It's Mother's Day after all. My wife should be coming back from out of town, and spend some time with her. So that's the plan. This other trench right here that continues that way, that's going to be for the septic drain line, and I'm going to go on top of the electric line, about spacing about a foot apart, and that's what's going to tie into all of these drain lines. So I think that's a pretty good update of what's happening, and glad you're here for the ride of this home build. It's been fun. It's been a lot of work, which I don't mind a lot of work. It's saving me money, and frankly I think that my kids are going to enjoy and appreciate things a little more by them spending time out here with me, as well as my wife, on the process. So if anybody ever gets a chance to do that and have your kids out, make sure when you have your kids anywhere close that you're paying attention and watching so they're not getting injured. Kind of a safety note with the tractors and that sort of thing. When you turn that off, put the bucket down, put the mower down. You know, I know my kids, they like to get on there and mess around. I don't want anybody getting hurt, so make sure that's the last thing I think anybody wants, is anybody getting hurt on the sites. So let's continue. All right, got my conduits all kind of laid out. I'll show you. And got my 2 foot 90 right there. Conduits laid out. My 3-inch schedule 40. Got to be gray for electrical. That's what the design called for my project. So since I'm the homeowner, I can do the electrical as far as the infrastructure goes myself, and I like doing things as much as possible myself. So some people get intimidated, but it's not too big of a deal. But the first thing I'm going to do, and which I did with that line as well, is I'm going to tape up this end. I don't want any dirt or any debris, water, which water is not going to hurt anything, but I just don't want to get anything in it, you know. So I'm going to tape it up with this PVC tape. For one, it sticks good. 2, doesn't hurt the residue if I wanted to glue something onto it later. And I'm kind of judging the height of that conduit that's already there. It's fairly close to where I want it to be, close to the bottom of the box. That way the electric company can make their connections and bend over the main hubs, the main wires for it, and that sort of thing. So that gives them plenty of room. If it's sticking up too high, then the conduit's in the way of them bending over their pipe. So you can always add on to it. It's a little harder when you gotta cut it, and especially if the wire's already there. So I like to seal it up pretty good. About 4 pieces of tape. And that'll cover that 3-inch. This tape is about 1.5 inches wide. Look like that. So the next thing I'm going to do, get my glue. I'm going to start gluing all these pieces together. And then I got 2x4s laying across my trench down towards that end, because the last one, wherever I am, I want it sticking up out of the trench. That way I can keep adding on, and I'll pull the 2x4 off. You'll see that in just a minute. But wearing gloves, and then I got a rag because this morning things are a little dewy, wet, and make make sure everything's kind of clean and dry, so when I go to glue, there's no mud, no dirt. It makes as good a connection as I possibly can. When I glue, make sure you have the right appropriate glue. I got PVC cement, regular, it's clear. There's other brands. Primer, I don't think you need the primer necessarily, just because this is not a water line. It's not need to be 100% sealed necessarily. I mean, it's good to be sealed, of course, but wires are just going in. So even if it got wet inside, the wires are coated with their proper coating. When I shove these in, you can't wait too long. I like to slide it in and give it a quarter turn. Okay. I'll let that set up for a minute, and I'm going to start gluing the rest of these together, and I can drop it in the hole. I've already measured my hole, so I was aiming for 36 inches, 3 feet. So there I'm actually a little lower. You got to kind of hit one of those high points, but 36 inches right down here. The code is 30 inches to the top of the conduit. So if my outside diameter, my thickest part, about 4 inches, I should be good. So even if I was a little up and down, a little low is okay, a little high, as long as it's under that 30 inches from the surface to the top of the conduit, it'll be good. And so far, after going through and measuring everything, what I've done with the excavator, it's looking pretty good. Right in this section right here, I dug through my curtain drain. I think you might have seen it in a previous video, but that's a section of the curtain drain where water from the spring drains into it. It's supposed to go that direction, but the natural slope of the ground humps right in there. So it'd back up and retain a bunch of water right here. So hopefully when I backfill everything, that spring continues through it, which it'll probably end up going this way and then that way and that way and on out. But if that gets dammed up pretty good with clay and it migrates back over to the curtain drain, and I'd like for it to carry on that way, and I'll jam pack this full of clay type material. That way water's not coming through it. So I'm gonna speed this up and show you the process. Alright, got at least a good section of it glued up. I'm about ready to drop in the hole. It really doesn't take long for this glue to set up, so you want to make sure you have everything in order. And looks like I might have to move that 2x4 down a little bit. I gotta slide it this way just a little bit more, and that way the bottom of that conduit's not down there in the ground. That's all it took. Slide that over. Basically, oh, boom, just like that. Got one end sticking up. The other over here, I'm going to grab my PVC tape. I'm going to bring those right next to each other, tape them together so they're not sliding one way or the other, and that sort of thing. So I'll get that done, and then I'm going to continue around. I got a 45 down there which you'll see here in just a sec. So, wanted to show you a little tip where I take those two together. I wanted them separated. I don't want them tight against each other. And the reason being, if I need to add on to it, the coupling that goes over it is wider than that conduit. If they're tight together, then you're stuck. You can't get it on. So, or it's really hard to get on. And once this is all backfilled, those conduits don't like to move around much, so have a little space between them. Not a lot. They got to be able to fit inside the box, and that box is only like 12 inches by 15 inches. See, 12 inches tall, 16 by 15 or some kind of thing. That's a purchase I still got to buy. They don't have those kind of boxes at your standard Home Depot home improvement stores. You got to go to electric supply company to get those junction boxes. So at least those in-ground junction boxes. So got to get this cleaned out, figure out my length of what I need. I might be able to add one more length, or at least I will, and then I might have to cut it. So we'll see, and you get to see too. Here's how I like to keep adding on. I like to have my everything up above the top with like 2x4s underneath it, that sort of thing. Got another 2x4 right here. This one's pretty dirty, but I make sure everything's really clean. The other thing is I like starting from one end, working my way to the other end, and I find it easier just for the reason that I can always trim things as I'm going, making the turns and that sort of thing. When you're forced to a specific distance, it's hard to get that just perfect. And especially if you're hard up against one end and you got to slide the two pieces together, because that splice is about 4 inches. Heck, I guess I should tell you. Yeah. Carpenter with a good eye. About 4 inches. I like to coat the glue both sides very well. You can see I'm going round and round and round and round. Get some more glue. You know, I'm trying to go that 4 inches, because I want that whole 4 inches to be glued together. And do the other end too, because the chemical reaction between the PVC glue and the conduit, it's priming both ends. Should always wear gloves and handling it as well. Just it's not good for your skin. And then, now that they're together like that, I can pull this 2x4 out, this one out, and gently hold it onto the other one. And now it's down, that direction down there is down towards the bottom of the trench. And here, I like to have the 2x4 out towards the end as much as possible. It's as low as possible. There's a little bit of rubble here I want to clear out, and that any kind of trench you really want to be paying attention to, because it can very easily collapse and pinch you. So if I'm down there and that collapses against my legs, it's a very short time before the blood stops circulating through my legs and that sort of thing. And if I'm bent over down into it and it collapses, well, there's nobody here to to rescue me, and it's only like a matter of seconds before it's over. So that would be the ultimate end game. Okay, so pay attention to the banks. If you're seeing cracking, sloughing, things like that, you might need to consider other precautions such as shoring and that sort of thing. Putting a piece of plywood in between the bank, wedging some 2x4s to hold that bank back while you get your conduit in, and then bust those 2x4s out, pull the plywood, go to the next one. Even though plywood, it's May 2021, plywood went up like over 300%, at least here in Oregon. It's still worth the cost rather than somebody's life. So can't emphasize that enough. So be cautious, be aware of your trenches and that sort of thing. All right, so I lowered that pipe down. Here's my 45. I'm gonna lay this in the trench, and I can tell where I want it. I gotta cut just a little piece there, and I'm gonna get a piece, cut it. But what I'm gonna need is turn this way now. In the opposite direction. I'm going to need measuring about 3.5 inches on each end. 1, 2, 3. So about, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue one stick on here. That'll give me a real true good idea of where it goes. So knowing that I need to swap the ends, turn my long stick around. Clean out that spot. So when I was laying out where to dig, I actually laid it out on the ground. Gave me a pretty good idea the shape of the 45 and all that sort of thing. And it's a good shape, but somehow a little shortened, probably because I went a little further that way where the junction box is. A little quarter turn or so, and lay it right in the hole in the trench. So this piece, yeah, that'll work. Go this way, hold it that way. And now that I got that other stick on, I'm going to be measuring about 2 foot 3.5 inches. I'm going to go get another stick and cut it. And the piece that I'm going to cut doesn't have to have the coupling on one end. These conduits, each end has the coupling already manufactured into it. So alright, I wanted to show you how I was going to cut conduit. You can use a skill or a sawzall, hacksaw, chop saw. I'm a carpenter. I'm going to use skill saw. So I'm going to measure my 2 foot 3.5 inches. 2 foot 3.5. Make a line. Got my hearing protection, my eye protection, and my cordless. Makes a nice clean cut. Just like that. Alright. I'm gonna get that in that hole, in that trench, and glue this bad boy together.